Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, this is one of the most sensational cases in the history of the United Kingdom of Great Britain. In fact, it has had massive reverberations here into the United States. It is, in a sense now, the George Floyd case, but for white people. And what is now emerging is the cry that is being heard in Britain, in the United States, across the West. White lives matter. And so here is exactly what happened. It is an absolutely heartbreaking story. It is on one level a profoundly unbelievable story, but it's all true. At about 11:30 p.m. on December 3rd, so this was about, 7 months ago, an 18-year-old university student by the name of Henry Nowak, who, and this is very important for the purposes, obviously, of what's going on, he's a white student. By the way, the first in his family to ever go to university. His father, immensely proud of him. His mother, sister, older sister, he was their pride and joy. Henry was described by everybody, literally everybody who knew him, as kind, funny, beloved, intelligent, a kid, I say this affectionately, a young man with tremendous potential in front of him. He had the whole world at the palm of his hand. Everybody who knew him said he did not have a racist bone in his body. He was the kind of son every father, every mother wants. The kind of brother every sibling wants. Henry went out with his mates, as they say in Britain, his football mates, his soccer mates, and they hung out for a couple of hours, and then he walked back to the university campus. But it was going to be the last time Henry was ever going to walk back to the university. He was brutally stabbed 5 times, including once in the face, by a 23-year-old Sikh Indian. And as Henry lay on the ground, stabbed 5 times, the police were called to the scene. And Henry lay on the ground. And we now know this, not just because of witnesses and witness testimony, but because the police, under withering pressure over the last 7 months, and this is why this case now has exploded, because the body cam footage of the police has now been released. So it confirms what everybody knows and what everybody's been saying for the last 7 months. The police arrived and were told by the perpetrator, the stabber. His name is Vikram Digwa, D-I-G-W-A. Digwa, 23 years old, told the police that he had been, quote unquote, racially assaulted by Henry, which turned out to be an absolute lie. That he grabbed his turban, threw it on the ground, falsely, that did not happen, and that he tried to racially abuse him. And so Digwa took out his kirpan, as it's called, which is a Sikh knife that many Sikhs say is a religious obligation for them to carry. It was 8 inches long, sharp. And he said, in order to protect himself from a, quote, white racist, that's exactly what he said to the police. This man was a white racist. And so to protect myself from a white racist, I had to defend myself. Henry lay on the ground, bleeding, on the street, on the sidewalk. He begged for police to help him. 9 times, a la George Floyd. 9 times. He said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He told the police 4 times that he had been stabbed repeatedly and that he is bleeding to death. The police's answer, I don't think so, mate. They didn't even believe that he had been stabbed. In front of witnesses, in front of the killer, in front of the killer's family, and I'm going to get to them in a second, because they tried to cover up their son's crime. So they were there. The police unbelievably put handcuffs on Henry Nowak. Not the criminal, not the perpetrator, not the stabber, but the victim. And they put handcuffs on him. First, they dragged him across the pavement. They put handcuffs on him. And then they read him his rights. They read Henry his rights. They were charging him with a racial assault against the man who had just stabbed him 5 times. And they did this with no evidence whatsoever. I want to stress this to you. There was no evidence that Henry did anything racist or wrong. And even if he did, which he didn't, the man is lying on the ground, bleeding, wounded, and dying. And you slap the handcuffs on him? For what? Grabbing the guy's turban, even if you believe the guy's story? It didn't matter. Because now he was arrested. They put handcuffs and they were reading him his rights. And within 60 seconds afterwards, Henry stopped speaking and the life left his body. And he died right there on the spot. On the spot. Digwa was then taken in for questioning. We now have a dead, innocent 18-year-old college student. Utterly blameless. Utterly innocent. He was the victim of a racist attack by a crazy Sikh. They took Digwa to the police station. Listen to this. They never put handcuffs on him once. Not only did they not put handcuffs on Digwa, they took him to the police station kitchen and said, "What would you like to eat?" And then finally they got the call from their chief of police and said, I don't know how to say this, but it appears, A, he's dead. By the way, the police never called an ambulance. They never tried to administer first aid. They never tried to save or rescue him. Because in their minds, he was a white supremacist. In their minds, he was automatically a racist who was racially abusing or attacking a protected class minority. And so they didn't even bother to try to save his life. They finally said, "You're going to have to charge him for murder." And when they eventually did arrest him and charge him for murder, Digwa, they didn't even put handcuffs on him. What is beyond sickening, it has shocked the conscience of Britain. It has shocked the conscience of the West. And now that the body camera footage has been released, and now that the trial of Digwa is over, it is now shocking the conscience of America. But I want you to understand what just happened. An innocent 18-year-old young man was brutally stabbed to death. And the police, in an act of blatant anti-white racism, sided with the killer over the victim. Britain now is about to explode. You have newspaper after newspaper now literally warning that if this two-tier justice system and this two-tier society and culture that has been created over the last 15 to 20 years by political correctness, by diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, by the radical woke left, if this thing is not completely overturned, and very soon, Britain is heading towards a potential civil war. The murder of Henry Nowak is a watershed moment, not just in British history, but in the West and here in America. There's no question. And look, as Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party, came out and said, white lives matter too. And what we are now witnessing, and this Trump is, I think the MAGA movement has been a reaction to this, and the rise of the Reform Party in Britain is a reaction to this, and the rise of the populist right across all of Europe and the West is a reaction to this. But what we're watching in front of our eyes is the creation of a very deeply racist system in which whites are systematically discriminated against, where anti-white racism is so prevalent and so deep, and it is now so indoctrinated into students, into universities, into the media, into the culture, and into policing, that they let an innocent white man who had been stabbed 5 times, who said 9 times to the police, again, a la George Floyd, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, who told him 4 times, I'm stabbed, I'm dying. And they cruelly, callously mocked him. Now, just so that you know, the police officers that arrived on the scene were all white. In fact, the 2 police officers that directly touched and handled Henry, put the handcuffs on him or reading him his rights, was a white male officer and a white female officer. So they had been so trained, so programmed to automatically believe an ethnic minority who happened to have brown skin, okay, the Sikh, over a white person, even though the ethnic minority is the one who stabbed him 5 times, and the white person is on the ground bleeding to death. This is how sick, this is how brainwashed and indoctrinated the police have now become. This is the level of anti-white racism, of self-loathing, to the extent now that police are trained not even to forget common sense or to use professional judgment, but to come in and say, white person on the ground, minority claiming some kind of discrimination, I automatically believe the minority, and the white person, well, he can go to hell. And in fact, as he's lying there dying, we're going to drag his body, as he's saying, I can't breathe. We're not going to call, in Britain, it's 911. Over there, it's 999. And so we're not going to call 999. We're not going to get an ambulance. We're not going to come in here and try to save his life. No, we're going to stick handcuffs on this guy, this poor kid, and read him his rights that he's now been arrested for a hate crime. And so the last words Henry Nowak heard was that his rights were being read to him and that he, not the man who had stabbed him and was about to kill him as he lay dying, but that Henry Nowak was now being arrested and that he was the criminal and not the person who stabbed him. You can't, I'm telling you, you can't make this up. Now, you're going to say, well, Jeff, okay. By the way, massive protests now in Britain. Massive. I'm talking, you've never seen protests like this. It has shaken the very foundations of British society, British culture, the entire British political establishment. And everyone in Britain is saying, if we don't do something now, the whole country is about to blow. But so what does it mean for us here in America? We're living under the same DEI regime. And this is the logical culmination of diversity, equity, inclusion. That white people are so dehumanized and so delegitimized because of these alleged sins of the past that now they are second-class citizens. We also live in a two-tier society. There's no difference between us and Britain. None whatsoever. And when you get into the details of the case, and I'm going to do that a little bit later, the Sikhs themselves knew that they were a protected, privileged victim class so that they could lie to the police and that the police would automatically believe them and side with them against the innocent 18-year-old boy whose their son, Digwa, the Vikram Digwa, had brutally stabbed and assaulted. All they had to do was make an allegation of racism. That's it. Just scream racism. And they knew right away that that is the one thing the police in Britain fear the most, because it will destroy their careers, their jobs, their pensions, their reputations. And so the moment they said racism, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so the sentencing of Digwa, the Sikh stabber, the man who killed the 23-year-old Sikh Indian who killed Henry Nowak, he was sentenced to life in prison, but only to serve a minimum of 21 years. The sentence itself is causing massive outrage and uproar. Basically, it's not a life sentence, it's 21 years. He's 23, he'll be out by 44. People are saying it should have been life, meaning life as in whole life. So again, the justice system failed Henry and his family. The police were refusing to release the body cam footage. They fought it tooth and nail. They finally, under relentless pressure, had to finally release the body cam footage. They did it in the middle of the night. This was just, I believe, 2 days ago. So this is why this story now is exploding and it's everywhere. Digwa has only been sentenced to 21 years. This just happened. And we now see the body cam footage, which is beyond shocking. It is beyond outrageous. It is honestly, it is true. It's very few things I've seen in my life are as heartbreaking as the body cam footage. Henry's father, who people say will never be the same after this, Mark Nowak, spoke really to the country and to the world on the steps of the courthouse after Digwa was now sentenced to essentially 21 years. Beside him were Henry's family, a grieving mother, his older sister beside herself, tears flowing. Mark was measured. He was angry. He was, by the way, very well dressed to mark the solemnity of the moment, how solemn, how sad, and to have respect and dignity for his son. And he spoke to the country and to the world. Listen to what Henry's father said. Roll cut 6, Mike.
When police arrived, Henry was lying on the floor, barely able to sit up and plainly in severe medical distress. With his final words, he told officers that he could not breathe. He told them he had been stabbed. In fact, Henry told officers that he could not breathe 9 times. He told them he had been stabbed 4 times. The response from one officer was, "I don't think you have, mate."
It's on the body cam footage. One of the male white police officer mocked him. And then he grabs him and he starts dragging the body. And he says, "I don't think you have, mate." Like you haven't been stabbed. Mocking him. Listen now. This is again Henry's father, Mark Nowak, saying now the police are trying to make excuses for why they allowed his son to bleed to death right there on the sidewalk. Roll cut 6A, Mike.
The police have said they were misled by the murderer and that the scene when they arrived was complex. Unfortunately, it seems to us the truth is much simpler. The police were told by our son himself and by a member of the public who called 999 that they heard someone shout that they had been stabbed. But the police did not believe them. Henry was pulled across the gravel, his hands forced behind his back, and he was placed in handcuffs. Instead of being treated as a dying victim, police formally arrested Henry for assault and read him his rights. That was the last thing he heard.
I'm telling you right now, that's the spark that's going to light a fuse. That's what has. They're on the streets now, and I don't think they're going to stop. I'm telling you, this is. Trust me when I tell you this. This is George Floyd times 100, for many, many reasons. Because Henry Nowak, unlike George Floyd, was not a career criminal. Okay, in other words, he wasn't George Floyd. George Floyd was a career criminal. George Floyd was an addict. George Floyd was overdosing on fentanyl when he said, "I can't breathe." George Floyd was a career criminal. George Floyd's death led to riots and burning and murder and people being killed. No one, thank the Lord so far, is rioting or burning. But Henry Nowak was no drug addict. He wasn't high on drugs. He wasn't overdosing. He wasn't a criminal. He did nothing wrong. He was just walking, and the deranged Sikh with a knife stabbed him and stabbed him and stabbed him. It was a completely unprovoked attack. And that the police dragged his bleeding body across the gravel and placed him in handcuffs and then read him his rights. I'm telling you, that's the part that the British public, and I think the world, cannot and will not and we must not accept. Listen now to Henry's father. And this chokes you up. Roll cut 6B, Mike.
Henry did not die with dignity. He did not die with the care he deserved. He lost consciousness before anyone believed him. Let me be absolutely clear. We hold Vikram Digwa solely and 100% responsible for the brutal murder of our son. But Henry should not have died on the streets of Southampton in police custody. The way he was treated was inhumane and degrading.
inhumane, and degrading. Now, let me ask all of you, if the tables were turned, if the stabber, the perpetrator, the murderer had been white, and the victim had been a Sikh or any protected minority, what do you think would be going on in Britain and even here? What do you think they would be doing? Every city in Britain would be in flames. Statues, monuments would be getting destroyed. Businesses would be looted. People would be getting murdered. It would be George Floyd all over again. But instead, because the victim was white, an 18-year-old innocent young man, completely blameless, nothing. In fact, official Britain, the establishment, is doing everything they can to try to cover up the police's culpability in the murder and the death of this innocent 18-year-old college student who died because of the color of his skin. Let's be very clear about this. DEI killed Henry Nowak. Because he was white, he was presumed to be a racist and subhuman who should not be treated, even if he's been stabbed repeatedly and he's lying on the ground dying. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to go to Patrick in New York, but just before I do, let me just play one more clip. This is Henry Nowak's father. Obviously now Digwa has been sentenced 21 years, and the family obviously is not happy. They don't think justice has been served. It hasn't. Listen now to Henry's dad. Roll cut 6C, Mike.
His murderer, however, was afforded decency. He was believed. He was not handcuffed when arrested. He was not handcuffed when transported to the police station. As far as we understand, he was never handcuffed at all. And, as Vikram Digwa himself told the court, whilst under arrest for Henry's murder, police even took him to the kitchen so he could choose his food.
I mean, there you go. I mean, it's, you want to talk about degrading, humiliating, favoring one protected class against, white people in Britain. This is it. I mean, this case embodies the whole thing. Now, it is a watershed moment. I'm telling you, Britain will never be the same after this. The genie is out of the bottle. The establishment now cannot cover this up. They're going to try, but it's not going to work. The same thing here in the United States. And DEI is nothing more than an anti-white racist system. And now it is leading to people being killed. Being killed. And look, let me put my cards on the table. That Sikh had no business carrying a knife. None. That's number one. Number two, yes, he stabbed him 5 times. And so to me, he's ultimately responsible for Henry's death. There's no question. But I'm sorry. Had the police done their job, Henry Nowak would be alive today. There's no question about it. Had they called, their version of 911, 999, and gotten an ambulance there and started to give him medical assistance the moment they arrived, first aid, instead of dragging his body, neglecting him, ignoring him, then handcuffing him, then reading him his rights, and letting the guy just sit there minute after minute after minute after minute and bleeding out and dying, he would be alive today. Diversity, equity, inclusion, political correctness got Henry Nowak killed because it created such callous disregard for human life, if you happen to be white, that the police now have been so desensitized, so brainwashed, so programmed, and that's what it is. It's nonstop indoctrination. We're undergoing it here in the United States, in the universities, in the colleges, and entertainment, popular culture, that if you kill a white person, who cares? They had it coming because he's a crypto-Nazi or a crypto-racist. All it takes is just the accusation that something racial happened, and the police automatically sided with the murderer and just let this poor boy die. In fact, it's worse than letting him die. It's worse. Because they put the handcuffs on him, and they mocked him, and then they arrested him. So the guy who's been stabbed to death and dying is the victim is the one who's being arrested and having his rights read to him. The last things he'll ever heard was, "You're under arrest. These are your rights." There is a certain point, let me just end with this, where as a society, as a culture, as a people, as a civilization, either you have self-respect or you don't. Either you have dignity or you don't. Either you have a certain amount of pride or you don't. And this is what diversity, equity, inclusion, critical race theory, political correctness, the woke left, cultural Marxism, whatever you want to call it at this point. If you keep flagellating yourselves and you keep hating yourselves and you keep telling yourself you're evil, you're oppressive, you're racist, you're bigoted, you're homophobic, transphobic, Islamophobic, blah, 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 blah. In other words, you're an evil blight on the world. By the way, you're so evil that all these minorities like these Sikhs come pouring into your country. You see, that's how racist you are. They don't stay in their country, they come to your country. Okay, that's how bigoted and racist you are. Okay, but let that go. You end up like Henry Nowak. He's a symbol. His death is the symbol of the death of Britain, and in many ways, the death of the West. That's why this case is reverberating all over the world. And the question is, for us Americans, are we going to be next? Are we going to have Henry Nowaks? Because I'm telling you, we're awfully close. Patrick, agree, disagree? Let me ask all of you. Did DEI get Henry Nowak killed? Number one. Number two, who do you blame more for his death? His Sikh killer, Vikram Digwa was his name, or is his name, or do you believe it was the police and DEI? Who was more responsible for the death of Henry Nowak? Patrick in New York. Thank you for holding, Patrick, and welcome.
Jeff.
Hi,
Morning,
Patrick.
Jeff. Hey. 2002, I'm retired federal law enforcement. I'm not going to name the agency. 2002, going through my training, and we were brought to a museum down in Washington, D.C., at the Jewish Holocaust Museum. Excellent exhibit. But we were specifically brought into a room and were shown how the atrocities of, the SS and the brown shirts had treated. But as you watch this documentary move along, they started to make comparisons of how the New Jersey State Police were dressed, the Massachusetts State Police were dressed, and how they resembled the SS. So at the end of the training, we were like, are you kidding me? Are you guys doing comparisons to law enforcement and the SS? And then the training continues down the road. It was the community outreach. We joined with CARE, and CARE would come into the federal law enforcement and explain how they are a great part of the community and how we should be respectful to their beliefs and their ways. And then specifically, 100%, I never forget this, they gave us outreach training with the Sikh community. And we're told to don't assume because somebody has a turban on their head that they're evil. But they also explained to us the religious items. And I can't remember if it was 5, 6, or 7. But they have 5, 6, or 7, maybe 8. Again, I can't remember.
It's 5. It's
religious,
5.
Okay.
It's 5 religious items that they have to carry allegedly as religious Sikhs. Keep going, Patrick.
One of them is a knife. And
Yes.
in federal and law enforcement, local law enforcement, you do a pat down. And during that pat down, in search of the person, part of it is do you have any knives? Do you have any weapons? But we were told to treat this knife with respect because it's not really a weapon. It's a religious item, and it's ceremonial only. It is not to be used in a violent manner, and that the Sikh community is a peaceful community. Now, this could be a one-off. This kid could have been mentally disturbed. He could have been looking for a fight. Who knows what the circumstances are? What my point is we were being instructed. We were being basically groomed to treat these people differently just because they had a religious knife on them. So this is back in 2002, 2003, 2004. You fast forward 20 years, and this is what you have. You have law enforcement that are afraid because of what you mentioned earlier. I'm going to lose my pension. I'm going to lose my status. I'm not going to get that promotion to a sergeant. I'm not going to get my promotion within a field office in the federal law enforcement. So I can't speak to the specifics of the case because the specifics of the case are just that. But I can tell you when you're talking about, how law enforcement is acting and moving forward these days, it's in total fear. It's in total fear. And yes, the support needs to come from leadership, but that's going to be that's like turning around a giant cruise ship doing 30 knots coming into a harbor. It's going to take a while. I have to get back to my new job, which I'm enjoying. But I hope that little bit of information allows you to understand where the law enforcement is. And it's just not at the local level, it's at the federal level. And it's been going on, from my experience, for at least 20 years. You have a great day,
Thank
Jeff.
you, Patrick, and God bless you, my friend. It's a great call. Great call. Look, he's not the only one. Many police officers tell me, Jeff, you have no idea. Political correctness, DEI, is tying our hands to the point that police are petrified to even do their jobs. Because believe it or not, the worst thing that could ever happen to you as a police officer is just the accusation of racism, and you're done. You've lost your job, you've lost your career, you've lost your pension, you've lost your reputation, you've lost everything. And increasingly, these sort of protected minorities know it. They know that. They know the power that they wield. And that's what's so chilling about this murder. The brother of Digwa was the one that first called 999. Again, it's their 911 in Britain. And on the call, he tells the operator, the dispatcher, right away, he says, this is a white guy, and this white guy said racist things against my brother. They're making it up. And so he racially assaulted us. And so we had no choice but to defend ourselves from this sort of phantom racial assault. So he's already laying the groundwork why this happened and that his brother was the victim, knowing full well that the police then were going to come in and side with the brother right away, because they were trying to make it seem it was a legitimate form of self-defense when it was the Sikh Digwa who, unprovoked, just went on a rampage and stabbed Henry Nowak for no reason. So they're lying to the 999 dispatcher in order to set the story, racist white guy, if he dies, he has it coming. My brother is the victim. By the way, he never called or asked for an ambulance. The father got involved. Digwa's father. Now he's trying to keep his son out of jail. So what did he do? He propped up Henry Nowak to make it seem like it wasn't so bad. So he's propping him up like, oh, he's not that bad. He's not that bad. The mother, his mother, takes the murder weapon, the knife, the Sikh knife, which, by the way, I think it's supposed to be 5 inches. This guy had it 8 inches. It was a mother knife, this supposed religious artifact, this religious item. And they took this 8-inch Sikh knife. It's called a kirpan. Okay, it's kind of like it's sort of like not straight like a sword. It's more curve shaped. Okay, it's one of these curve shaped knives. She takes the knife. She hides the freaking knife, the murder weapon. Now, this is the thing that is blowing everybody's mind. I want you to just sit back and I want you to digest this. Had Digwa, Verkham Digwa, the perpetrator, the murderer, had he just taken Henry's phone and then taken his dagger and run away and thrown him, whatever, destroyed him, buried him, threw him somewhere in a pipe, whatever, in a lake or I don't care, garbage, whatever, garbage dump, whatever. If he had just disposed of the phone and then of the knife, Henry would have been found the next morning. Nobody would have known who the hell stabbed him, what the hell happened, and it would have probably been to this day, nobody would know who killed Henry Nowak and why. But because they were so confident, because they were seeing political correctness, multiculturalism being imposed upon a reluctant white population. So with multiculturalism, with diversity, equity, inclusion, with wokeness, with this woke virus infecting Britain, with political correctness everywhere, they said, no, why bother even throwing away the murder weapon and taking his phone? No, we'll just freaking lie. We'll just tell him he's a bigot. He's a white guy. If he's a white guy, he has to be a racist. And he said some ugly racist things, and he grabbed a turban. That was the big thing. They said, well, he tried to pull my turban off my head. Like, in other words, so he had it coming. And they said, yeah, the authorities will bend the knee. Just like they did after George Floyd's death. Everybody was bending the knee. By the way, Keir Starmer in Britain bent the knee. Millions of British people, George Floyd happened in Minneapolis. In Britain, they were all bending the knee. In Canada, they were bending the knee. The Prime Minister at the time, Trudeau, bent the knee. Every member of the Labour Party, including Keir Starmer, bent the knee. They rioted in Britain over George Floyd. Like, what the hell did Britain have to do with George Floyd? It didn't matter. And they destroyed statues, monuments, you name it, blocked traffic. They didn't do this for Henry Nowak, I'll tell you this. But that's how confident they were that they're going to bend the knee again. The problem is, it was the footage. The problem is that witnesses began to come out and say, no. That boy, and he was a boy, 18, was walking, minding his own business. You ran onto the street and you put up, by the way, he didn't just slash his face. The first stab was right in the chest. You just, for whatever reason, because I think the guy's sick in the head, right in the freaking chest. Now, let me just say this, because this needs to be said. I promise I'm going to go to another caller. Since when do Sikhs get dispensations that the rest of the population, aren't supposed to have? It is illegal in Britain. It is illegal because the knife violence is so high. You ban all guns, so now they're using knives. And knives is now the weapon of choice. Britain now has a murder rate higher than New York. So they banned the guns. What do you think they're killing each other with? Knives. So it's gotten to the point, it's like a form of knife control. You are not allowed to carry any kind of a knife. Doesn't matter if it's a 1-inch blade, a 10-inch blade, a steak knife, a pocket knife, a Swiss knife. It doesn't matter. You cannot carry one outside of your home. But the Sikhs are allowed because they claim it's a religious item. It's a religious article. But they also say it's harmless. It's a little 5-inch blade, which apparently they say is always sheathed. And it's a dull blade. You can't hurt anybody. Really? Well, ask Henry Nowak. Because it took 5 stabs and he was dead. That thing was a sharp mother effer. Okay? That was one hell of a knife. Now, here in Massachusetts, because, by the way, and it's happening in Canada, it's happening wherever Sikhs go. They always want exemptions. They have to wear the turban everywhere. Even if in some places they say you can't have a headdress. No. It's a religious article for them. A knife. Well, you can't bring a knife onto a plane. No, it's a religious article. You can't bring a knife into a school. No, it's a religious article. No, you can't bring it in Britain anywhere. No, it's a religious article. Okay. In Hopkinton, you can look it up. Here in Massachusetts, Hopkinton now is the first town in which they're now saying that the schools in Hopkinton, because they ban knives, rightly so, but not in Hopkinton. In Hopkinton, if you are a Sikh and you say it is, religious for religious purposes, then you are entitled to bring a knife, the kirpan, into school. Hopkinton now is the first school system, the first town to legalize bringing in the kirpan, that curved knife of theirs, into the school. And I'm telling you, it's not going to be the last. It's going to grow and grow under the guise of diversity and compassion and multiculturalism. And it is only a matter of time before that knife is used in the brutal stabbing or murder of an American student. Now, this is my policy towards the Sikhs. It's the same towards the Muslims or any other religious minority. I am not in your country. You are in my country. And here, we are all equal before the law. If you're not allowed to bring a knife anywhere, that applies to everyone. Leave your knife at home. If you so insist that you have to have your knife with you, well, then I'm sorry. Go back to India. 617-266-6868. Okay, 7:20-ish Wednesday. You know what that means. Truth or troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
All right, today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from Jill Biden, who is currently on her book tour, where she recently went on an interview with MS Now, where she contradicted what Joe Biden's campaign said during the events immediately following Joe's disastrous 2024 presidential debate.
I think most Americans may not know that I have a team of doctors around me as First Lady. Joe had a team of doctors around him. So when I saw that, and I was frightened, I was, scared to death to see that. But the doctors were there. And so right after he got off of stage, let's face it, Joe knew that this was not a good performance. As we walked off the stage, he whispered to me, Jill, I really, I'll put it nicely, screwed up, didn't I? And I said, yeah, Joe, you did. And so he knew. And then we got off the stage and, I went to get my stuff. He was checked out by the doctors. They said he's fine. We went on to do 3 more events that night.
So she says that Joe Biden was immediately checked up on by the doctors who were on the scene. Is she telling the truth or is she trolling? Because apparently, like, from what I remember, the campaign said he was not checked out by doctors immediately afterwards. So is she just gaslighting everybody?
Yes. Yeah, the BS. I mean, look, they're desperate for money. They're broke. Hunter is, what, $20 million in the hole? It all went up his nose into Russian hookers. Joey, I don't know what the hell he did with all the money, but anyway, they're broke. And now she's got to peddle a book. And they can't even keep their story straight, because you're right. After the debate, when said, is he okay? And does he need to see a doctor? They were like, no. The campaign said, no, he didn't see a doctor. He doesn't need to see a doctor. Then she comes out and says, I thought he had a heart attack. Now she's like, well, the doctors are around him. And so what? Because within a couple minutes, she sent them off in front of a group. They did 3 events after that debate. So there she was, like with a leash, dragging him around like a little poodle.
And she thought that Biden had a stroke, by the way, not a heart attack.
Forgive me, a stroke, my bad. That he had a stroke. And I'm like, what? The doctors just look at him and say, no, Joe, you're ready to go. You're good. Keep going. I mean, look, she's lying, but, she's got to sell books. The only good thing is nobody's buying her book because nobody's buying her BS. So, no, she's definitely trolling, Mike. Take it to the bank. But I want to ask all of you, because what's my opinion, right? Doesn't really matter. It's your opinion that counts. Truth or troll? When Jill Biden says that Joe Biden was surrounded by doctors and that they reassured her that he did not suffer a stroke, is she A, telling the truth, or B, trolling? To me, she's clearly trolling. I don't know how much more obvious a woman can make it, but that's me. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. And of course, you can always vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report. Larry in Arkansas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How is the weather up in your area?
Well, it's getting better. I mean, it was pretty cold for about a week, Larry, some rain, but now it's starting to feel slowly like summer. Let me guess. Beautiful and hot where you are.
Yeah, Monday it was 94 with a 90% humidity.
Well, the 94 I like. It's the 90% humidity. That's a bit tough. Larry,
yeah.
Go ahead, my friend.
I was going to say, I'd like to thank the guys who invented the air-conditioned seats. Those are great out down here.
Well, Larry, I mean, that's evil America that invented that,
So, Jeff,
which is a byproduct of evil Britain, but let that go, Larry.
Not to downplay what happened in England. Tragic, you're right. It's their George Floyd. DEI is at fault for that. But I was talking to Mike when I first called. Are you aware we're going through this right now here?
What do you mean, Larry?
Have you heard of Carmelo Anthony?
Yes.
See, now I had to laugh. Mike thought I was talking about the NBA player. He got arrested? No. So the trial started this week. It's jury selection down in Texas. And if the audience doesn't know, a student in Texas, he's black, brought a knife to a high school sanctioned track meet. He was in a rival school's tent. This white kid, Austin Metcalf, asked him to leave. They got into a shouting match. And he said, if you touch me, put your hands on me, see what happens. Some reports said he just pushed him. Some reports said he struck him. But this kid pulled out the knife, stabbed him once in the chest. Now, where it becomes similar is first, when he was finally indicted 2 months after this incident. This happened a year ago in April, and he was indicted a year ago in June.
617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Larry in Arkansas. He's saying, yes, the Henry Nowak case, obviously huge in Britain, reverberating across the West, across the United States. It's a watershed moment, no doubt about it. However, he says we have our own Henry Nowak here in the United States, in Texas. And the perpetrator was Carmelo Anthony, who stabbed a white track and field athlete right in the chest, essentially unprovoked. Larry, we had to go to break. Please pick up where you left off.
So his initial bail, sir, was $1 million. That got lowered to $250,000 so he could get out. His family did a campaign of hate saying that, now there's a term, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I've been using it to describe how a lot of minorities are getting away with white people. The term is he used or she used the magical N-word, and I think you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
They're using that as the excuse. Well, he used the magical N-word, so I had no choice but to stab him, or I had no choice but to shoot him or beat him up, whatever. You get the idea.
Yes.
His family managed to raise over $500,000 through Give, Send, Go, or the other one there, and spent it on everything but his defense. He was allowed to graduate. They let a murderer, a kid who brought a knife, a high school kid, because the last time I checked, even knives are not allowed in high school, and stabbed him. Now, they didn't go to the same school. There were rival schools, but they still let this kid graduate. They've been, like, bending over backwards to give him everything he wants so that they don't look like they're coming down hard on the minority. And that is essentially DEI. Now, his trial is starting. There's a concern that the jury might try to nullify it and let him loose like they did to OJ. And on top of that, I don't think Mike heard about it because it's not being publicized in the news. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed and it was the white kid that stabbed the black kid at the high school track meet? It would have been nonstop, 24/7.
Oh, there would have been rioting. I agree with you.
Exactly.
But it wouldn't have just been nonstop saturation media coverage. There would have been rioting. It would have been George Floyd 2.0. I guarantee it.
Well, the reason I had said it that way is because there's one. She's not a citizen journalist. She's actually a small town journalist, but the family and representatives have gone out of their way to smear this woman, dox this woman, to keep her from telling the truth about what actually happened. This is how sick it is. And it's, like I said, I feel bad for the guy in England. And on that note, your previous colleague used a term. The Sikh are carrying a ceremonial knife, right? I was given I can't speak this morning, a ceremonial katana sword. Do you know what ceremonial is? No blade. If it's got a blade on it, it's not ceremonial. It's a weapon. It's blunted. There is no blade on it. It looks like it's got a blade, but it's not sharp. I could run my hand right down and it wouldn't cut me because it's just blunt. It's ceremonial. That's a real knife. That's not a ceremonial blade, using the air quotes. So why he was running around with a real knife is beyond me.
Well, again, it goes back to what you're saying. Look, we use the term diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, but that's the term invented by the left. What it really is as Nigel Farage put it, it's anti-white racism. That's what it is. It's just another way of saying, no, we're going to be racist against whites, period. I mean, out and out, ugly, unadulterated, unequivocal racism. It's white guy is lying on the ground. Well, I'll come back to Carmelo Anthony in a second, Larry, but just to go back to Henry Nowak. A white kid is lying on the ground. He was stabbed 5 times, once in the face. He's bleeding to death. Completely unprovoked attack. He's 1,000% innocent. There's no question about it. And the cops put the handcuffs on the white kid that's lying on the ground because the perpetrator said he said something racist. I mean, even if you accepted what the perpetrator said, that doesn't justify you not calling for help or getting an ambulance or treating him on the spot. And by the way, as many people in Britain are saying, and they're right, when the guy's been stabbed 5 times and he's dying in his own pool of blood, even if he was the aggressor, just for argument's sake, what are you doing putting handcuffs on the guy? Like, what are you restraining him for? He's going to die in 5 minutes. I mean, it just to show you the insanity, the brutality, the callousness. This is what, this woke virus is doing. It's dehumanizing people. It's like, well, he's a racist. So, it's what the Nazis did to the Jews. You just so desensitize and dehumanize and delegitimize that their lives become utterly worthless. And they can be treated in the most inhumane, callous way imaginable. Shocking. And, anyway, and so going back to Carmelo Anthony. So, no, what happened was I read about that story. No, his pride was hurt that he was told to go and get out of that tent that they were in. And Macho Man had a knife, and he pulled out the knife, and he stabbed him right in the chest. That's it. That's all. That's what happened. And you're right. If this had been a white kid who stabbed a black kid, the whole country would know that person, the victim's name. Instead, it's a black kid, and look, they're trying to get him off. In other words, the white kid's life has no meaning. They have to get him graduated. Why does he have to graduate? They're raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for him, which he's blowing on fancy cars and clothes and all kinds of jewelry and expenses. It's not going. Bought a house. You're right, Mike. They even bought a house. Bought a house. That's not going to his lawyers and his defense fund. They bought a house. Because white people now are considered inferior. That's what it is. That's what DEI is. That's what critical race theory is. It's anti-white bigotry and racism. You're evil, you're bad, you're scum because of the color of your skin, period. And this is what it's leading to, and this is what it's going to continue to lead to. Unless we as a society and as a people say, no, enough is enough. We are not going to tolerate this anymore. And so we have to ask ourselves, where's our pride? Where's our dignity? Where's our self-respect? We need a White Lives Matter movement. I'm serious. White lives matter too. We're human beings too. Larry, final word to you. Am I wrong?
Wrong. And 2 things I want to leave the audience with. 1, Austin Metcalf died in the arms of his twin brother. How devastating that family is. And then, on top of that, to make it worse, the representatives of the Anthony family went on a tear portraying him, somewhat successfully in my opinion locally, as utter racist. That was the campaign they used against the victim, who did nothing but say, hey, get out of our tent. You're not in this school. Go to your own place. And so they went on a smear campaign to label him and his brother as almost a KKK, just an attempt to get the kid off, even though they all knew what he did. And that's what we got to fight. That pendulum has swung so far in the other direction to make it seem like anything happens, it's automatically racism. And that's got to stop as well.
Larry, I agree with you. Not 100, but 1,000%. Larry, thank you so much for that call. Excellent call. Agree, disagree. Angelo in Rockland. Thanks for holding, Angelo, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Yeah,
hi, Angelo.
This has been going on. This has been going on for a while. The plan of, I'll say it, the communist. And everybody's following in that playbook. It started with, instead of Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And then if you say something out of line that doesn't go with the agenda, for instance, Somalia fraud. If you say something, all of a sudden you're racist. But that's their playbook. They use the United States law system to work against us. And you know something? They're doing a good job of manipulating the law and putting the innocent, hardworking people up.
Angelo, do me a favor. I'm up against it. Hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. Look, let me ask all of you. Who do you think is ultimately more responsible? It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Which is responsible, or I guess more responsible, for the death of Henry Nowak in Great Britain? Is it the knife-wielding Vikram Digwa, the Sikh who had his religious article dagger and stabbed him 5 times? Or DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion? A, Digwa. B, DEI. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhner. You can also vote via X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, at the Kuhner Report, KUHN as in national ER. Angelo, you were saying, look, this is really a form of cultural Marxism. This is what the communists want. It's part of their plan. It's called the Great Replacement. In other words, flood our borders with third world migrants, impose multiculturalism and so-called diversity so they don't assimilate, and eventually replace the native populations. In this case, the American population here, the white American population, or the English or British population in the United Kingdom. And this is why they're on a campaign to demonize, vilify, and debase whites in particular as being inherently evil, sick, and essentially a bunch of Nazis. So when they are murdered or massacred, it's all justified in the name of anti-white racism. Please pick up where you left off, Angelo.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, on the question of the day, I'm definitely a B. You have the woke regime training the police for the new dummy down of America and the world, for that matter. They've been doing this for many years. It's part of their plan. Like the Chinese sit back and they let everybody fight to the death, and they sit back and wait for everybody getting weak, and then eventually they can make their move. That's their plan. Time's on their side. They've been doing that for thousands of years in the Middle East, and that's what we're up against in Iran right now, as you know. I would let the neighboring, I'm jumping around from topic to topic, but the other hot topic, Jeff, for me is that they should use the neighboring countries to flush out the God in Iran, and then we do everything from there to support them, because you're not getting a new regime without cutting the head off the snakes.
Well, Angelo, we'll see. I mean, I don't want to get off topic. I hear where you're coming from. But I think we may have a deal. I think Trump wants to sign a deal. And apparently, according to Rubio, they are excruciatingly close to a deal. So we shall see, Angelo, what will happen. I think by the end of the week, we'll have our answer. Angelo, thank you very, very much for that call. Okay, before I go to Mark in New Hampshire, of course, in the backdrop of what happened with Henry Nowak is another massive scandal, which in some ways dwarfs the murder and then the appalling, shocking treatment of Henry by the police, just letting him bleed to death. In fact, put cuffs on him, handcuff him, and arrest and charge him, and he's the victim, which guaranteed his death, guaranteed his doom. And that, of course, is the grooming gang scandal that has been plaguing Britain now for many, many, many years. And the text line is full of this. Many of you commenting on it. So This is from, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. This is from 781. Jeff, the murder of Henry Nowak might shock some, but why should it surprise anyone? When a society ignores the rape of hundreds of white British girls because the rapists are from a protected class of migrants, why would murder not be the next place for blind eyes? And that's, I think, a brilliant point. It was essentially Pakistani Muslim men who set up these grooming gangs in which they raped, in some cases gang raped, repeatedly, young British white girls. And I mean girls, 12, 13, 14 years old. And the police knew about it. There were massive complaints. Parents were livid. Victims spoke out. You had news story after news story. There were media stories breaking this. And the police deliberately turned a blind eye, and they have refused to arrest anyone, any of these rapists. Why? Because they are a protected class. One, their skin color, they're an ethnic minority. B, they're Muslim. So they're not once but twice protected. And because the victims happen to be white, who cares? Who cares? They're British white girls. They probably deserved it. And so that's the attitude. And so you've now gone from deliberately ignoring and turning a blind eye and allowing grooming gangs, rape gangs to target young British girls indiscriminately with impunity, with no punishment whatsoever, to now stabbing them or stabbing young men, and the police who arrive on the scene side with the murderer and the perpetrator. 617-266-6868. Let me just read one more. This is from 603. Makes an excellent point. Jeff, this upside-down, self-deprecating leftist brainwashing campaign of the native population and its police forces in England has been going on for years. It's also the same thing here in America, in Canada, in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Australia, New Zealand, and most of Europe, essentially the West. In England, if your daughter is abducted and violated by a Pakistani rape gang, and you make a big deal out of it, chances are the violators will be ignored and you will be targeted by law enforcement. If you speak up against these things and try to raise awareness online, you will be arrested by your own countrymen for saying, quote unquote, hurtful words against minorities. I'll tell you this, Jeff. If I was a minority living in a country whose native population was twisting themselves into pretzels to accommodate my presence over their own, and my excuse, my behavior, no matter how criminal it may get, I'd be laughing my rear end off at that population that was giving me absolutely nothing to respect. And that's exactly what's happening. You know what, 603, you're a genius. You're an absolute genius. I think that's part of the problem. When you so debase yourself, when you have such lack of respect for yourself, when you're constantly saying, we're evil, we're racist, we're sinful, we're oppressive. Oh my God, we should be so ashamed of who we are and our history and our past. And oh my God, we're horrible, we're evil, we're horrible, we're evil. I don't think minorities or immigrants who come into that society, who respects that? They don't respect. I mean, you really think many of these immigrants from third world countries respect us? when we keep going on about slavery, for example? Why? They all come from societies that had slavery much longer than we did. You don't see them flagellating themselves. They come from societies today. Take India as an example. India has a caste system. To this day, they have a caste system. India is no offense to Indian people. They're wonderful, productive, smart, creative. But no one's going to tell me that India today is not a deeply racist society and country. Are you kidding me? That's why, honestly, the Sikhs are leaving India, because they go, we're constantly discriminated against in India by Indians or the Hindu majority. That it's a form of apartheid in India for the Sikhs, according to them. And they come here and we're like, oh, we're racist. Oh, we're racist. Oh, we're so racist. Oh, please go ahead, wear your knife. No. You can go anywhere you want. No, have your turban because, my God, you're brown skin. What we've done to brown skinned people. Oh, my God, we're so sorry. And they're looking around saying, you guys have done nothing to us. I mean, we've been kicked around in India by the Hindu Indians whose skin is just as brown as ours. Like, what is wrong with you people? Like, what are you guys, all nuts? What are you hating yourself for? So they don't respect us. 603 is completely correct. Would you respect a country whose police officers come and see a person stabbed 5 times to death? Stabbed 5 times, bleeding to death? And all the person has to say, the perpetrator is, yeah, he's a racist. I went for my turban. Well, okay, well, let the guy bleed to death. You know what? Forget letting him bleed to death. We're going to arrest him. Here, put the handcuffs on him. And we're going to charge him. And so the poor guy, the poor kid is like, he's bleeding out. He can't speak. And they're like, you're under arrest for hate crimes. And they start reading him his rights as he's dying. Those are the last words he ever heard. Would you respect the white British population if you were a minority? I wouldn't. Would you? Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, buddy.
Mark, how are you, my friend?
I'm well. You're talking about the weather. This last weekend up on Mount Washington, they were plowing 3-foot snowdrifts. The ice age has started, Jeff. The ice age has started. Where's Al Gore?
Mark, are you shocked by this scandal, this Henry Nowak scandal? And what do you think? Is this finally the turning point that maybe we're going to see the mother of all backlashes in Britain and maybe here, and we can finally root and branch just rip up DEI and this woke virus and this anti-white racism once and for all?
Jeff, if you've been following England over the last, 10 years, I'm not shocked. This has been coming. I mean, you can see it. You can watch how they treat, native Brits. They look at them as the enemy, as the people who are in need of monitoring. But, there's a couple things with this whole mess, Jeff. One, as far as the father goes, I guarantee lawyers told him, don't go on those steps and say anything bad. If you say the wrong thing, they're going to arrest you. I guarantee they would have arrested the father had he said anything about the guy being a Sikh or anything about his culture. They would have arrested the father, Jeff, for hate speech. I guarantee it. So he probably had to be very measured about what he wanted to say. But you were talking about the police. Do we hold the officers responsible? Here's the big problem, Jeff. In order to hold the police officers responsible, you have to indict them. What state prosecutor is going to file the charges? Because you put them on the stand, Jeff, and they're going to say, well, this is what we were trained to do. This is how we were told to act when we come upon a scene with a minority and a white Brit. We were told to believe what the minority says first. So that opens up a whole can of worms, Jeff. Now you put the trainers on blast. And then who trains those trainers, Jeff? It's the politicians that create the policies that force these trainers to tell the police officers, this is how you have to act. So you would indict the entire system, Jeff. And you'd have to have a prosecutor willing to do that, and none of them are. So these police officers are going to get a slap on the wrist and told, hey, you have to do better next time. Check for a pulse when you walk up. You know, that's all that's going to happen, Jeff. There's not going to be a prosecution of any police officers in this because they're going to do their best to sweep this under the rug and say, look, the family got justice. The guy that did it is going to jail. Don't hold our police responsible. They have a hard job to do, Jeff.
You know, I wish I could disagree with you, but as usual, I can't, Mark. I really can't. And so I guess I got to ask you the obvious follow-up question, and maybe to the whole audience as well. What happened to Brits, to the English, the Irish, the Scots, the Welsh, to frankly most Europeans, to most Canadians, Australians, New Zealanders, obviously us Americans? What happened to us? Why have we become so self-hating? Like, think about it. I mean, just objectively, which civilization has spread the most freedom and liberty around the world? Us. Which society has created the most fair, equal, free, just, countries and, and civilizations in the world? Us. Who defeated Nazism, won World War II? We did. Who won the Cold War? We did. Who's liberated more people, actually billions of people around the world, from enslavement of some form? It's us. Yet we hate ourselves. They don't. I mean, the Sikhs don't hate themselves. The Chinese don't hate themselves. The Indians don't hate themselves. The Russians don't hate themselves. The Africans don't hate themselves. The Latin Americans don't hate themselves. The Muslims who've had slavery since literally the time of Muhammad, and they spread it all across the Middle East and Africa, they don't hate themselves. So why do we? What is driving this self-hatred and self-loathing to the point now, Mark, we're about to commit essentially suicide as a civilization and as a culture? What's your theory?
So this, honestly, Jeff, I think goes back to education. When you start with, essentially kindergartners, telling them to, react based on emotion, that you have to have empathy, that you have to put yourself in their shoes, that you must act with regard to how your feelings are, not common sense, not the law, but how your feelings are about a certain topic. And that's what they do, Jeff. They train these kids to think with their feelings over and over. So then when they get old enough, they elect people that talk about issues based on feelings, not on merit, not on, the law, not on the Constitution, but how it feels. And when you're constantly putting people into office that govern based on feelings, this is what you're going to get. If you're making someone upset because of what you're saying, you don't look at what they're saying. If it's valid, you say that's hate speech because words are violence. You're committing violence against someone because you disagree with them and you don't believe what they believe. And this is everything, Jeff, I think goes back to our education system, and the people that have taken the reins and are in control of our kids are forcing these kinds of things onto them to train them to believe and to trust only through their feelings. It has nothing to do with following the law. It has nothing to do with love of our country. It's about, you convince them so many times that America has been just a horrible place, that we're awful. It's not liberating people, Jeff. We're colonializing. See, they control the language. When you control the language, you control the population.
Again, brilliant points, Mark, as usual. Let me ask you this, I guess, ultimate follow-up. They're not going to black kids and saying, because of the color of your skin, you're evil, but you're bad, you're wicked. They're not going to brown-skinned kids and saying, whatever, because you're Arab or Latino or whatever. Well, you're evil, you're wicked. or Asians, same thing, color of your skin, you're wicked or evil. They're only doing it to white kids. So it's a form of deep-seated, virulent, anti-white hatred and racism. Why this hatred for whites? And it's being perpetrated mainly by whites, white elites, liberal, leftist, Marxist elites, against fellow whites. Why?
It's severe liberal white guilt, Jeff. These are the people who have been being told this since they were young, that white people are responsible for all what's wrong in this country, Jeff. We're responsible for slavery around the world. We're responsible for brown people having to deal with drug cartels because we interfered in those nations, Jeff. It's a constant barrage of you're responsible. And too many people have just said, look, I don't want to deal with this anymore. You guys, do what you want. I want to live my life. I want to earn my living. I want to pay for my home and my family. I don't have time to deal with your madness. But it's infiltrated everything, Jeff. I mean, TV, movies, commercials. It's all about, like if you see an ad, and I'm not going to play the race thing here, but it's always a minority is doing the right thing and the white guy's doing the wrong thing.
You nailed it.
In TV, it's constant.
You're
constant,
right. You
Jeff.
nailed it.
Everywhere.
Oh, my God, did you nail it? TV shows, sitcoms, movies, commercials. It's true. It's the white person is always the evil bad guy. Always, always, always. Mark, as always, dynamite call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, they were under tremendous pressure. Obviously, the police did not want to release the body cam footage. It was devastating. It took 7 months of relentless, around-the-clock pressure. The public was demanding to know what exactly happened to Henry Nowak on that fateful night on December 3rd. Well, the police in the middle of the night finally had to release the body camera footage. And it's very disturbing to watch. When you hear it, it doesn't quite have the same effect as when you see it. But let me just describe to you just briefly. It is very dark. You can see Henry on the ground. He's in a pool of blood. His face has a deep, deep cut because he was slashed in the face. He's got massive stab wounds throughout his body. The big one is in his chest. He is on the ground. When I mean he's practically lifeless. He's not moving. He's speaking very faintly. He's losing blood. He's losing blood fast. He's dying. He's obviously dying. You can see that. And that's what's so shocking. Now, there were 4 police officers who arrived on the scene. 2 of them, the ones that actually touched him, grabbed him, dragged him, handcuffed him, and read him his rights. Those 2, you can clearly see it is a white male police officer and a white female police officer. They are incredibly indifferent, cold, utterly callous, completely insensitive, unfeeling to this man's plight whatsoever. The moment they were told that this was a, quote, racial attack by the criminal, by the perpetrator, by the murderer, they took the murderer's word without any evidence whatsoever. They just automatically sided with the Sikh who had stabbed him 5 times. And that's the most chilling thing of all. Here is a man, a young 18-year-old man, dying. And I want you to listen now. Here is the body camera footage. They're now cuffing him and they're dragging Henry. And you can hear Henry saying, "I've been stabbed. I can't breathe." A la George Floyd. I can't breathe. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Help. What's happened to you, alright?
Been stabbed.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate. Hand?
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
Yeah.
This is like
It's harrowing. It's harrowing. And, you know, he says, yeah, you've been stabbed. Hey, mate, you've been stabbed, huh, mate? Like he doesn't believe him. And he's like, I don't think so, mate. And he's like, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And you could tell he's running out of oxygen. You know, he's like, I can't breathe. And then they put the handcuffs on. That to me is just incredible. Just incredible. And the other two police officers are in the background and they're consoling the Sikh. They're consoling the murderer. Like they're like listening, nodding, and almost like tapping him on the shoulder. You know, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, oh my God, you mean really? He took off your turban? No. What else did he call you some kind of a slur? My God, what did he say to you? Roll cut 1A. This is the police first showing up on the scene. And one officer asks, hey, who stabbed Henry Nowak? And, I mean, is he hurt? I mean, to me, you could see the blood on the freaking floor. Okay, on the street. Like, what are you guys, blind? Roll cut 1A, Mike.
he keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up.
Alright.
He's got a mouthful of blood. I don't want him.
He was on the bin on the other side of this gate.
He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that. And he's up here.
Move away, mate.
He's obviously fallen from there and he slipped from there.
There's other shoes left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me.
He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off. Started grabbing my head.
Are you injured?
Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruise.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
Took my turban off a little bit. No, mate. I mean, this is unbelievable. You know? Yeah, so, yeah. He wasn't really stabbed now, was he? Huh? No, mate. The female officer asks Nowak, have you been stabbed? Listen to his response. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
Can we get a
Nothing happened.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
is it
just
you
check
think
him.
you've been stabbed? In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
Right.
Look at this.
Face?
In the face.
Get these to back off, get their details on that, and I'll keep hold of him.
In the face. Oh, I guess we have to get his details now, do we? Maybe we should check. What do you think? You can't look at his face? You can't see the blood gushing out of his face? Okay, let me just play one more cut and then go right back to the phone lines. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is the one that, for me personally, I find the most difficult. That is the police body cam footage. The officers are now speaking to Henry. He's clearly dying. And they're asking for his name. And he can barely give his name. He's pretty much almost lifeless now at this point. He keeps saying, I can't breathe, that he was stabbed over and over again. And then they tell him that he, the victim, is under arrest. Roll cut 1C, Mike.
Should we
Keep you on your side, mate. You better retrieve then. I'm saying to him, I'm keeping him on his side. We were set up when we had him here, but he didn't like it. What's your name, mate? At the moment, you are under arrest. That's for assault, so you do not have to say anything. May harm in defence. If you do not mention when questioned, So I'll talk to you later on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, all right? It's going to be sick, I think.
What's his name?
I just want you to call it.
Yeah, we've got this male. He's been beat up. Are we able to get an ambulance, please? His pupils aren't even reacting.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I don't know what to say. I mean, there's almost nothing left to say, really. It's now, just so that you know, and then I want to go to Andy and Milford, but just, they're all on duty. They're still on duty, except for one. I believe the female police officer. This is what the British media is now reporting, that the female police officer quietly resigned, on her own, quietly resigned. And because she resigned, she wasn't compelled to give witness testimony to what she saw, what she heard, what the other officers did, what she did. So basically, the police are desperately trying to cover this up. So they're basically saying, okay, fine, you just go, nothing, you're not going to be prosecuted, nothing's going to happen to you, and we're not even going to ask you any questions about what happened that night. The other three, I believe they're male, the other three male police officers, they're still on duty, they're still working. Forget, no suspension, no resignation, not even a slap on the wrist. They're still getting paid and they're still working. I don't know what else to tell you. So the cover-up is on, and they've launched an official inquiry. You can take this to the bank. The inquiry is going to conclude that the police did nothing wrong. They're going to say they're going to exonerate all of the police officers, and they're going to say, no, they followed their training and they did nothing wrong. And, this is very unfortunate. But hey, Vikram Digwa is in prison. He's going to spend 21 years behind bars. So, there was justice. And, we feel very bad for Henry and his father and everybody that's grieving in his family. And let's move on now. White people evil. Let's move on. Come on now. We got to side with the Palestinians. Come on, let's go. We got to side with the Muslims. Let's go. Britain bad, white people bad, and, all hail Keir Starmer, that woke prime minister. I mean, I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen. Unless the people of Britain take it to the streets. Massive, overwhelming protests. Peaceful, always peaceful. But now it's time for mass civil disobedience. Agree, disagree. Andy in Milford. Thanks for holding, Andy, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Andy.
First, before I begin, Jeff, I just want to say all of us together, we are taking America back, one Kuhner report at a time.
Oh, God bless you.
Now, this situation that happened over in UK, just when you look at it through the lens of our federalist system here, first thing, probable cause. In our country, before the police do anything, they have to have probable cause. Jeff, even if we get pulled over in our car, the police have to have probable cause to pull you over. Then B, when the police approach, they have to clearly communicate to you the reason you were stopped. And this DEI just blatantly violates those norms. And the other cornerstone in American jurisprudence, innocent until proven guilty. You have to have evidence that somebody is, in fact, a racist, did commit a crime in the name of hate, whatever. And So, I mean, DEI, Jeff, it's blatantly unconstitutional under our whole system. That point needs to be made. And the thing that struck me, Jeff, is just what we see unfolding in the United Kingdom. I mean, the government, just from the Prime Minister to the parliamentarians, right down to UK police. I mean, the government's blatantly doing it. Here in this country, Jeff, in the deep blue jurisdictions, they've actually been implementing this in those deep blue jurisdictions through jury nullification, corrupt jury pools, and Soros prosecutors selectively enforcing the laws. And there's already been numerous situations where, like, left-wing terrorists, Antifas, they can't find juries in some of these, like, I'm talking deep blue cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs jurisdictions that'll convict them. So we have that going on, and I'll tell you, Jeff, what you reported about what's going on in Hopkinton, that's news to me, brother. I'll tell you what should happen with that is the governor should immediately be on the phone to the Hopkinton town officials, because by now, Jeff, there are state laws on the books that clearly say zero tolerance concerning kids having weapons of any kind in the public schools. The governor needs to be on the phone to the Hopkinton town officials and just, you've got one of two choices. You either rescind this policy, or I'm sending in the Massachusetts State Police to put the bracelets on you and arrest you for violating state law. That's what should happen. God willing, this fall, if we can get a Republican governor, that will happen. And also, no local aid to any cities or towns that embrace this madness is another thing.
Oh, I agree. Andy, I so agree. Look, the sad thing is, no, the governor agrees with Hopkinton. And what they want is they want to spread it to other towns and other school districts. If there's a Sikh minority or Indian Sikhs, and if they want to bring their, it's called a kirpan, their dagger, their 5, 6, 7, 8-inch dagger, which they claim is a religious item, then they are allowed to bring it. They want them to be encouraged to bring it. And this is what I mean. Diversity is going to kill us. That's, a white person could never bring a knife in. But if you happen to be a minority and you claim some kind of an exemption, or it's cultural, or it's part of your identity, or it's got some kind of religious meaning, no matter how it goes against our traditions, our values, our laws, no. That's multiculturalism. Their culture is more important and supersedes ours. And I think, Andy, look, I've got a shocking story for everybody. And this is not in the United Kingdom. This is not only here in the United States. It's right here in Massachusetts. And it's tied to exactly what we're talking about. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has done. What multiculturalism has done. What civilizational self-hatred has now done. So everybody's talking about the 250th big anniversary and what cities and towns are going to be planning and doing. You're not going to believe what's happening here in Massachusetts. Trust me when I tell you this. 617-266-6868 is the number. Mike, I think we got to go to break, correct? Mike? Yeah, okay. So we're going to go to break, but hang on. Okay, so look, in a nutshell, what we're seeing in Britain is now happening in America, but even on a deeper cultural, moral, civilizational level. What you're seeing in Britain is really a suicide of a civilization through constant self-loathing, self-hatred, self-debasement, and this belief that British society is somehow wickedly evil. White people, by extension, the native population, is wickedly evil. What are we seeing here in the United States? We have, in a couple of months, actually less than a month, just over a month, forgive me, what am I saying? Almost a month from now, July 4th, which will be our 250th anniversary celebration. Already, Democrat after Democrat after Democrat, leading Democrats, are now saying they will not be celebrating the 4th of July. Not just because Donald Trump is in office, although that's part of it. They say there is nothing to celebrate. That we are a racist country still, haunted by slavery, haunted by the mistreatment of Native American Indians, according to them, haunted by misogyny, by homophobia, Islamophobia, and that we are just such an evil, wicked, bigoted country with so much fascism and white supremacy that there is nothing to celebrate, and they refuse to celebrate. You have hosts on MS Now and CNN saying they will not be celebrating the 250th anniversary because, again, America is the evil empire. It is an evil, wicked, bad country. You now have singers who were supposed to be singing. They wanted to be recruited for the big party, the big national bash in Washington. And one after another says they will not sing. A, because Trump is asking them to, but B, because, again, what is there to celebrate? So you have the commanding heights of the Democratic Party, the commanding heights of the liberal media, the commanding heights of popular culture. And by the way, they're all making millions and millions and millions of dollars. But this country is just not good enough for them. Other countries, they say, we would celebrate, but not this country. And to add insult to injury, and I want to prepare all of you for this. As an historian, I used to always teach at McGill that to really understand the American Revolution, you have to understand one seminal fact. That Boston, or if you want to be more accurate, the greater Boston area, Massachusetts, was the cradle of the American Revolution, and it was the cradle of American liberty. That without Massachusetts, and Virginia also played a huge part. Basically, it was those two states. I'm not trying to diminish Washington and Jefferson and Madison, and because the Virginians were key. But there's no question, the heart, the soul, the beating heart of the revolution, what started the revolution and sustained the revolution, was here in Massachusetts. Well, now, this is the beating heart of the hatred of our revolution. This is now, in the entire country, this is now the heart and soul, the epicenter of the movement to not celebrate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. In the Democrat-run town of Rutland in Massachusetts, they have now officially confirmed, and trust me, they're not going to be the only one. Democrat town after Democrat town are now saying no celebrations on the 4th of July, no celebration of the 250th anniversary. There's going to be no parades. There's going to be none of that. The town of Rutland has now confirmed that they will not be holding a July 4th celebration. They are canceling the 250th 4th of July celebrations. Now, according to them, the excuse that they're giving, okay, the excuse that they're giving is that they will not celebrate Independence Day. because that's what it really is. It's the birth of our independence and the incredible 250th anniversary, which, by the way, should be a moment of incredible pride, of incredible happiness and celebration and joy. But now, no longer. According to them, I have the letter in front of me that they sent, that the town council sent to the entire town of Rutland, that even though there is tremendous opposition to their decision to cancel the 250th anniversary celebration of the 4th of July. In fact, this is what they write. Rutland's 4th of July celebration is a cherished tradition that brings neighbors and generations together. So the decision to cancel was not made lightly. So why? Why did they have to cancel the event? Was it for lack of funding? No. They say they allocated all the money that they needed for all of the planned celebratory events. In fact, not only did they have all the money, and I'm going to get to this a little bit later because it's becoming a very hot topic, people in the town of Rutland made extra donations out of their own pocket. $50, $100, $200, $25, whatever. But people said, no. We want to go all out for the 250th. So we want to make sure that, the fireworks, the parade, a sea of flags, whatever it costs, here we are, we're going to donate. So private donations on top of, taxpayer dollars have already been sent in, collected. So no, it's not that they don't have enough money. Listen to this. It's because, according to them, they cannot guarantee the public safety of the attendees at this Independence Day celebration and manage traffic and maintain emergency response coverage throughout the town. Quote, I'm reading again right from the letter. Due to anticipated staffing limitations, our police and fire chiefs have determined that they cannot safely support both the event and routine emergency services at the same time. So moving forward under these conditions would put both attendees and the broader community at risk. We also explored the possibility of bringing in outside personnel, however, without a unified command structure. Listen to this BS. And coordinated operations. Doing so would create additional safety concerns rather than resolve them. Now, they're trying to tell the people of Rutland, quote, that, it's not political. It's not ideological. It's not the ultimate finger to Donald Trump or to our founding fathers or to American history and everything that we've achieved, American civilization. No. This is what they say. The decision is based solely on public safety considerations. It's all about public safety. It is not related to funding availability or intended as a response to any community viewpoints. In other words, blank you to all you patriots who wanted the 250th anniversary celebration of Independence Day. Now, I don't want to read because it goes on for paragraphs. What they then say on top of that, let me just summarize it for you. You can read the letter. It's everywhere. Is they go on to say, but we want you to know that we're going to keep the funds. Because if we want to throw a 4th of July party next year, well, we'll have the funds to be able to do it. So we're not going to spend the money or anything like that. But we just want you to know we're going to keep the money like in a lockbox or whatever. And then, if we decide to do it next year, then we'll just spend the money for next year. Well, which begs the question, if you can potentially do it next year, why can't you do it this year? That's problem number one. Problem number two, and here it comes. They are not going to return the private donations. They are going to keep the private donations. So you may have cut them a check for $100 or $200 or $50 or whatever for the 250th anniversary of Independence Day. But they're going to keep that money, even though they're not going to be celebrating or doing any events on Independence Day. And they say, well, we're going to keep it. We don't know how we could give it to people because a lot of it was just, not just checks, it was cash. They did a kind of a fundraiser and people just said, hey, here's a 20, here's a 50, here's a 10, whatever, here's some money. Well, we don't know how to give that money back to people because some people gave us cash. And then listen to this. They said, but we're also going to hold that money in case we decide to do a 4th of July celebration, maybe next year. But if Trump's still in power, then maybe we'll just not do it again next year, maybe the year after that. Who knows? So you got people in Rutland rightly saying, let me get this straight. You are canceling Independence Day, the 250th anniversary celebration of the 4th, and you're not going to give us our money back? And you're not going to give us our donations back? Now, let me tell you what's really happening, and then I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. What is very clear to me is that they don't want to celebrate the 250th anniversary of Independence Day. A, to protest Trump. It's Trump derangement syndrome. And B, this is diversity, equity, inclusion. America is an evil, sick, wicked country, and there's nothing to celebrate. That's what's happening in Rutland. So they're now going to cancel our celebrations. And they're using this excuse of public safety. Well, we can't provide emergency services and guarantee security for all these people that are going to show up, say, I don't know, at the 4th of July parade or at the concert that they have planned or, whatever. There's a lot of activities, but the fireworks at night. Well, I'll tell you what. You can hire extra security. It's not a problem. So you can leave enough police and fire on reserve in case there is an emergency. You just don't want to do it. By the way, I don't believe them that they can't do both. I don't believe them. Because I'll tell you, when there were big celebrations in the past, there were no problems. When there were other 4th of July, no problem. When the Patriots won the Super Bowl and they did celebrations in all these towns, then there was no problem. So for some reason, there was never a problem in the past with firefighters and police and providing safety and security. Suddenly now there's a problem. So I don't believe them. But let me just take it at face value. Get outside security. That's okay. Not a problem. Hell, you raise so much freaking money, you can certainly pay for the extra security. You've got donations up the wazoo on top of all the tax money you guys took to put into the fund. That's, to me, point number one. So, no, you just don't want to do the celebrations. As I said, DEI. That's what this is. This is multiculturalism. Believe me, if this was Cinco de Mayo, they have the money. If this was Ramadan, they have the money. If this was Ukraine Day, and they've had Ukraine Day, they have the money Fire department, no fire department. Police, no police. No. Slava Ukraina, glory to Ukraine. They have the money. But 250th anniversary of our founding, of our independence, of our freedom, blank you. This to me then is the final insult. You even tell us we're probably going to do this next year or the year after or whenever Donald Trump leaves. But we're going to keep your money. We're going to hold it. Now, call me crazy, but isn't this theft? You tell me, and that's what the town of Rutland did. They said, we're going to have a big bash. It's our 250th birthday. And we're going to spare no expense. Great, I'm with you. But we're not just going to take it out of the city budget, your taxes. I'm fine. I'll pay even a little bit more. No. We just want donations. Sure. Okay, here's $100. Is that good enough? What do you want? 150, 200? So you're taking money from law-abiding, tax-paying citizens and telling them you're going to use it to celebrate our 250th birthday. And now you're not going to celebrate our 250th birthday under a bogus pretense, okay, under a lie, and you're keeping the money? Now, they say they're going to hold it over, until they eventually do it next year or the year after. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but if you can do it next year or the year after, why can't you do it this year? Like, well, I'm sorry, what's changing in a year or two? And how do I know you're not going to steal the money? How do I know this is not going to go to illegals? How do I know you're not going to pocket the cash? The money should be returned. I give you money because you want to do a celebration, a 250th birthday party, and you don't do the 250th birthday party because you say you can't work out the security or safety logistics. Give me my money back. Hey, buddy, you just fleeced me. You just picked my pocket. Well, you gave us cash and we don't know if, we can't give people back their money. We don't know if what you say is true, if it really was 50 or 100. Well, you guys should have thought of that before you canceled the whole shebang, before you canceled the whole celebration. That's on you. That's your fault. That's not our fault. Now, here's my prediction. They're already talking about this in other liberal towns, all across Massachusetts. And the rest of the country is looking at Massachusetts because they're being egged on by the Democrats and by the liberal media and by all these entertainers who don't want to celebrate the 4th of July and saying it's not worth celebrating. And never mind the 250th anniversary. You are going to see this spread to other cities and towns around Massachusetts. As surely, as surely as the sun rises, you are going to see cancellations of Independence Day celebrations and our 250th birthday. And when they start to see momentum in this state, and it is coming, then you're going to see other blue states follow suit. But Massachusetts, to bring this all full circle, the cradle of the American Revolution, in many ways the birthplace of America, of American independence and American freedom, is now the cradle of the opposition to America, of the hatred to America, of the refusal to celebrate our 250th birthday. That's what liberalism, the Democrats, and the Moonbats have done to our state. And I'm telling you, that's what they're going to do, like a plague of locusts, to state after state, blue city after blue city, all across the country. They don't love America. They hate America. And that's what DEI gets you. It is the ultimate end, the logical culmination of woke Marxist ideology and diversity, equity, inclusion. Let me ask you a double-barreled question. Should the town of Rutland cancel the planned celebrations? They've already canceled it, but do you agree with their decision to cancel the 250th birthday or anniversary of our independence? They say they can't guarantee public safety while the events are going on or the celebrations are going on because they're going to need too many firefighters and police officers during the parade, during the fireworks, during a potential concert. And so they can't guarantee emergency coverage. And if they hire extra people, they can't really have a proper command structure and coordinate security. So they said we're just going to have to cancel this year. And everybody that donated out of their own pocket, you're not going to get your money back. At a minimum, should their donations be returned? I say, over my dead body, should they cancel celebrations? They should be ashamed of themselves. Honestly, I think it's time the people of Rutland went out and protested peacefully, but they should go right in front of that town council and say, we pay your salary, we pay we pay our taxes, pay for your salaries and your jobs. You promised us a 4th of July celebration. You're going to give us a 4th of July celebration. And the donations, if you're not going to do it, you reimburse us to the penny. Agree, disagree? Robert in Rutland. Thanks for holding, Robert. Speaking of Rutland, and welcome. Robert, how do you feel about it?
Oh, I'm very, very upset. And the real big reason that you haven't mentioned yet is that the town overrode the Proposition 2.5 in their vote last month. And I think it's a little bit of retaliation because of that.
Oh, I didn't even think of that angle.
Yes.
So basically they're saying if you're not going to let us raise your taxes, blank you're not going to enjoy a 250th anniversary of our independence.
You got it.
Robert, I got to ask you, I've been reading reports. People in Rutland are furious. Taxpayers, residents are upset. They're very angry. I don't blame them. Are they planning a protest? What are they planning to do about this?
Right now, nobody has.
I'm not sure what's happening right now, but they did have a special meeting earlier this week on Monday where the town continued to say they're not going to do the parade. But the other part is that we have big parades every year. I mean, it's packed.
Tell him about that.
Huh?
So basically, if they could do security in the past, they can definitely do security again. Correct, Robert?
They have all local towns get together. They put ambulances and fire trucks outside of the crowd area, and they're manned. And if anything comes up, they just go out and do their thing.
Yep.
Robert, look, I feel so strongly about this. Honestly, I'm so upset. I'll tell you what. You talk to your friends, neighbors, fellow residents in Rutland. If they want to hold a rally, again, peaceful, civil, nonviolent, but we have the right to freedom of assembly. That's one of the things our revolution won for us. That's one of the freedoms we won with our independence 250 years ago. I will be more than happy to speak, to attend, and to get as many Kuhner Country listeners to join me. In other words, if you guys want to shame the town council, I am more than happy to help all of you shame them because you deserve one hell of a 250th 4th of July birthday bash. We all do. Every town, every city, across the entire country. But Robert, especially here in Massachusetts, the cradle of the American Revolution. I mean, honestly, Robert, if we don't celebrate it, who the hell should? So, Robert, what say you?
I say, I'm not sure how we can get your help to have a demonstration. How do I get that information to get you involved?
Robert, listen, here's what you do. Talk to your fellow people in Rutland If they're really serious about this, you can call into the show. Just call in, speak to Sandy or Mike. They're aware of what the public offer I've made, and leave them your contact info, and I will call you. And the town sets up a rally, I will be there. You have my word. So it's up to the town and the residents of the town. But if they want their birthday bash, I think it's time for a rally. And maybe when they see thousands of us out there protesting, maybe they'll change their mind. Does that sound like a plan, Robert?
Sure, I'll do my best. And there's one other part. There's also some talk about union stuff and overtime and taking the sheriff of Worcester County volunteered his help for security, and it was refused because it might affect overtime of the unions of the fire and the police.
Unbelievable. Well, we're going to tell them it's 4th of July. It's the 250th birthday. It's once in history. You can forego your overtime. When our Patriots rose up against the British and they were battling them in Lexington and Concord and places all over the 13 colonies, tell me, were Samuel Adams or John Adams or Alexander Hamilton or George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, tell me, were they asking for overtime pay? When we took them on for 7 years and brought the British Empire to their knees and fought them day after day, in many cases in freezing temperatures, against one of the most formidable armies in the history of the world, the greatest empire since Rome. Tell me, were they asking for overtime pay? In other words, the unions are upset if they have to work on July 4th. It's a full day, and firefighters and some of the police officers, we want overtime. Are you kidding me? Seriously. Okay, we'll raise the money for you to get your freaking overtime if it means that much to you. And B, it's 4th of July. I think you can do a couple hours free. Huh? I don't think it'll kill you. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, credit to Sandy Shack. Hat tip to Von Shack. Sandy said, Jeff, I think it's a memo. I think there's a memo going around. Because remember, this started with Gavin Newsom, Sandy, maybe about a month ago? Don't quote me. Yeah, about a month, 4, 5, 6 weeks, something like that, where Gavin Newsom said, I can't celebrate the 4th of July. I can't celebrate Independence Day. I know it's our 250th birthday. It's supposed to be a big deal, but I can't do it. And then it went to him, to Kamala, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Mamdani, all of them. And now it's going to the town level. Now it's in Rutland. No. I think there's a memo. And they want Massachusetts to take the lead, and then other states will follow. Christina in Andover. Thanks for holding, Christina, and welcome.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Christina.
Hi, Jeff. I had originally called regarding the talk about a half an hour ago on hate speech.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Christina.
But I have a few comments to make about the 4th of July. First of all, let me comment on that. Wakefield, Massachusetts has an enormous parade, just like Rutland does, with all the activities for the kids and everything. And I have to tell you, I go there once in a while. I went there a couple of years ago, and the international people absolutely overwhelmed that town. They love the 4th of July. So I really don't know what all this stuff is about canceling the 4th of July. Do the people that have come here to enjoy the United States hate the United States? No. I think that they love the United States. The Mexicans love it here. Everybody loves it here. They want these celebrations. So I'm not sure what that's all about.
Oh, you're dead on. No, it's the Democrats and the liberals. Look, again, I don't want to, it's going back to what we were talking about earlier. The people destroying Britain, just to go back to our earlier topic, are British liberal white elites. It's the same thing in Rutland. I'm looking at a picture of that city council or the town council. It's all Democrat run. It's one white liberal after another. One liberal elitist, limousine liberal after another. You're 1,000% correct. You know, working middle class, whatever. I don't care what ethnicity they are. You know, Mexicans, Chinese, I don't care, Indians, take your pick. Of course they love 4th of July. Of course they love being in America. It's the land of opportunity. It's the land of freedom. They're never going to have it as good as home or the country they left or their parents left as you're going to have here in the United States. And honestly, Christina, I love 4th of July. It's, to me, outside of Christmas and Easter, I also love Thanksgiving too. So, you know, it's up there with Easter, Thanksgiving, Easter, and Christmas. But I love it. It's Americana at its best, at its finest. So, Mike is making jokes in my ear about not to upset him or Sandy, or he'll ban me from celebrating. But really, I love 4th of July. I love the fireworks. I love the parades. I love the patriotic concerts. I love the pancake breakfasts. Everything. I love the cookout. I just love it all. How can you not? It's our birthday. It's the one day we can really, truly be proud to be Americans and celebrate everything we've achieved, which is the envy of the world, the greatest republic ever in the history of humanity. And now they want to ruin that too? It's unforgivable. No, the answer has to be no. Absolutely not. No. Christina, please go ahead. Final word to you.
I think that they're ruining it for everybody, and they're just spreading hatred everywhere. The kids absolutely love all these activities, the canoeing and the bicycle parades, and it gives them confidence and beautiful memories, and it brings communities together. And this is all just more division. It's more hatred. It's more division. It's evil. I think it's evil. I truly do.
You're right. No, it is. It is evil.
It's for white people. And so that just, it becomes so widespread, this mass stink that they're trying to get into everybody's heads. And so what I had called, I really wanted to say initially when you're talking about that hate speech is, and this is what I'm thinking, is that this is, people are becoming brainwashed. And so I witnessed in Middleton at a Walgreens an international guy back, around Christmas time. And it just came out of his mouth. And he even himself was surprised when he said to this white woman, this senior white woman, we have to get rid of all the whites. And I saw the look on her face where she was stunned. And then he was stunned himself that he had even said that. And then I think he had to stop and sort of collect himself. Like, what am I saying? So this is just, I don't know if he absolutely believed that or if this is something that's just rolling off his tongue because everybody is saying it and it's brainwashing everyone. It's division. It's that is, good and evil. That is absolute evil.
You're dead on. Christina, look, it's what many conservatives are calling the woke mind virus that's being spread in schools, in entertainment, in commercials, even on TV, obviously in universities and colleges. It's everywhere. It's a poison. It's a poison. And it's, stuff is coming out of people's mind. They're like, oh, I can't believe I just said that. But, it's almost identical to what the Nazis were pushing against the Jews in the 1930s. Except we're just replacing Jews with whites. That's all. And it's starting to lead to practical consequences, like a poor white kid who did nothing wrong gets stabbed 5 times, and they arrest him and let him bleed to death because we have to get rid of all whites. That's what's being drummed, programmed, brainwashed into people's minds. It's sickening, and it's demonic, it's evil, and it has to be stopped. We have to fight it with everything we have. Christina, thank you for that call. Really good call. Speaking of Rutland, okay, Peter in Rutland. Thanks for holding, Peter, and welcome.
Jeff, good morning.
Hi, Peter.
Want to give you a different perspective. I want to comment on this because I've been a resident of the town of Rutland since 1990. I am a retired police officer, and there's a whole host of things going on here with regards to the 4th of July committee and why it was canceled. I'd like to give it a little bit different spin on it. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not happy about, what's going on up here with the 4th of July aspect being canceled. However, let me put it this way. Rutland is a growing bedroom community. When I think I moved into the town, I think that maybe it was 4,000 people. It's now just shy of 10,000 people.
Peter, can you... I'm up against it. Please, I got to go to a break, but I'm going to come right back to you. Peter, you were saying that the town of Rutland has grown considerably since you've began living there. It started off when you were there at 4,000. It's now at about 10,000 people. And you're saying that may play a role in what is happening with the decision by the local town council to cancel 4th of July or Independence Day celebrations. Please, Peter, pick up where you left off.
Okay, Jeff, I want to be very clear that I was a police officer for 34 years. Okay, public safety is not a whamby-pamby thing that you can do. You basically have to abide by the law, and you have to protect the community. Okay, the 4th of July thing, the 4th of July celebrations up here are 3 days. All right. Right now, the way things are going with the override not passing is they are going to lay off 5 full-time police officers in the entire part-time shift for the police department. They're laying off 4 firefighters. All right. And they just don't have the resources to do the fireworks because, number one, it's a surrounding town. Okay. The surrounding towns all come in here. Worcester comes in here. Leominster. You get thousands of people coming to see the fireworks, and they don't have the manpower to do it. It's really sad, but that's the way it is. And there's going to be another meeting here in Rutland on the 16th. All right, and it's going to be another override or adjustment of the Wachusett Regional School District, which is consuming a lot of money. I think every dollar that's paid in taxes, 70 cents on the dollar goes to the regional school system. So I'm gonna be upfront and fair with you. I know the police up there. I know the fire department, and to have a fireworks and the amount of people coming into town, they're not going to have the manpower to do it. These folks are all getting laid off July 1st. So there are a lot of logistical things here that need to be discussed. And I know the chief personally. He's a friend of mine, and he wouldn't be doing the right thing. Basically have people coming into the community and not being able to run ambulances or have the proper policing to basically have a function of that size. So it's unfortunate, but it's a reality. So there's a lot of moving parts here that probably a lot of people don't understand. The Rutland 4th of July celebration, 3-day celebration, has been going on constantly since the 1940s, I believe, the late 1940s. It's just gotten to the point right now, the override didn't make it, and they're going to have to cut somewhere, and they're cutting police, fire, and EMS people. So I don't know what to tell you. The reality is, if you were the chief of police, you'd have to make a decision.
Well, Peter, what you're telling me is this, and I understand where you're coming from, but that in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, that we can't provide enough security to have a celebration for our 250th birthday because of a failure on a local proposition to raise taxes? I mean, is that the argument now that the city council is trying to make, or the local chief of police or the police chief? We can hire outside security. If it means that much, we can go from 3 days to 1 day and just celebrate on the 4th of July. I mean, there's a million ways you can do this. But no, I'm sorry. I don't accept your premise. I'm not saying you're being dishonest or disingenuous. I'm just saying I don't accept your premise. They got their priorities upside down. That's the problem. And if they're going to lay them off on July 1st, okay, lay them off on July 7th. I mean, there's many ways we can solve this. But this is the 250th anniversary of our independence. And what, we're not going to have a celebration? Because the town council is teed off that, people in Rutland don't want to pay more in taxes when they're already taxed to the hilt? No, I'm sorry. And look, the dirty secret is this. When you give all your money, I know you're talking about the regional school, but when you give all your money to illegals, this is what begins to happen.